Hello, Dan here from Wrench Monkeys, working on a 2016 ND Miata, doing a little engine swapping. Customer managed to blow this thing up at the racetrack somehow, maybe running a little low on oil. Not smart. So ALLDATA would have you dropping the subframe and the engine and transmission as a unit after the subframe's out, which, you know, getting the subframe out is a lot of work with all the suspension and everything attached to it, and then pulling the engine and tranny together is obviously a lot of work. I managed to do it without doing that. So ALLDATA has got you working a little harder, I think, than necessary. Some other videos I saw on YouTube also had people dropping the subframe, pulling the whole front of the car off. They had the front bumper off. They had the thing really torn apart. And I just didn't want to work that hard. So I'll give you a couple of pointers as to how I did things. Definitely discharged the air conditioning, unhooked some AC lines, actually left the compressor on the motor, pulled the motor out with the starter on it, with the AC compressor on it, with the alternator on it. Belts are still on it. So yeah, left the motor mount brackets still on the motor. The exhaust manifold / cat came off when the engine was about halfway out, so it's going to have to go back on as it's going back in. You can see the cowl and this little piece that sits right here got taken out to give a little more access to some of the top transmission bolts, and also to give room to lift everything up as it came out. So the real trick, I think, is that the subframe needs to get dropped down about a ½ inch. Take the bolts out of the front, loosen the bolts in the back, and then loosen the nuts kind of by the control arms, and just let that subframe drop a ½ inch. And what that lets you do is when the subframe drops with the engine on it, the transmission drops as well. Makes it a little bit easier to get the wiring harness off of the transmission, because you've got to pull all of the wires that hook to the different switches on the transmission, which are here. So this harness runs all the way to the back and hooks into a couple different things on the tranny, clips onto the top of the tranny. It's really tricky to get these things off. You end up breaking a couple of the clips that kind of hold it to the top of the tranny, but hopefully you don't break any of the important stuff. But yeah, if you don't have that transmission dropped down with the engine and the subframe, I think it would be really difficult to get those things unplugged. Clutch slave cylinder remained all hooked up. Just drop that out of the way. Let's see, anything else interesting? Yeah, some of the wiring harness gets unplugged here, just like ALLDATA would tell you to do. The engine computer gets unplugged, and the engine computer with a bunch of the wiring ends up just kind of sitting here on top of the motor while you're working on it. Let's see what else. I did take the coolant tank out. That thing just clips into a couple of clips on the radiator shroud, so that comes out really easy, because it was really a tight fit getting the engine up and then forward and having the oil pan clear the front brace here before the cherry picker started hitting the hood. I've got the hood held up with a hood prop so that it's up higher. Obviously that helped, and I didn't have to take the hood off, which is always nice. And you can see I've got the cherry picker and this little engine leveler set as low as possible. But yeah, it didn't fight me too much. I'd say first time doing it, and it took me about 6 hours, and that included watching some YouTube videos and reading some ALLDATA. So I'm guessing it's about a 4-hour, maybe a 5-hour job if you had done it before. All right, hope you enjoyed this, and that things go smoothly if you're doing this job. Thank you.